Today we're sewing up the Shawl Collar Sweater from Gus Steel. This is a great cozy top, perfect for holiday photos and cold winter weather. We like to sew this up with a nice French terry or stretch sweatshirt fleece. To sew the shawl collar, you'll need one front bodice, one back bodice, two sleeves, two cuffs, the inside and outside shawl collars. They are different because of the buttonhole placement, one waistband, and a buttonhole loop and a button if you're using them. On your pattern piece, there's an indicator of a cut line at the corners of the collar. Let's start by clipping that now. This little cut is important. You'll need it to be exactly as deep as your seam allowance at 3/8 of an inch and at exactly a 45-degree angle. If you clip them too long, you'll end up with holes at the corners of your collar. Too short and your collar won't turn correctly. So let's clip this at exactly 3/8 of an inch. Now let's make our collar. We'll need to add the button loop first, so we'll place it on the right side of the fabric, on top of the collar, at the notch. We'll secure it with several straight stitches. With the button loop attached, we'll sandwich it in between the two layers of the collar with right sides together. You can clip it in place, and then you'll sew around the curve. That's all done and the button loop is secured. Now let's sew our shoulder seams. With right sides together, match up the shoulders, clip them in place, and then sew across them. We'll attach the collar next. I find this easiest to do by lining up the bodice with the right side out. Match the double notch on the collar with the double notch on the neckline. Put a clip there to hold it in place. And then work your way around one side at a time, clipping in place as you go. When you get to the end, the collar should be 3/8 of an inch longer than the neckline on each side. That 3/8 of an inch will make it easier to turn the front of the collar around the 90-degree angle. Match up the other side as well, leaving that 3/8 of an inch of the collar overhanging on the other side as well. Go ahead and sew from one end of the collar around to the other. So with the collar attached, we're going to make this 90-degree turn. It's not difficult, but it is a little fiddly. So working from the right side, we're going to start with the side of the collar with the button loop. You're going to turn the collar down to line up the short edges of the collar with the front of the neckline. This is where that notch you made is so important. That's what makes it possible to turn the fabric to this new angle. Notice the collar does not go all the way across on either side. Now we're going to sew across the front. I like to work from the bodice side so I can make sure nothing gets pinched at the corners. It's really important here to keep a nice 3/8 inch seam allowance. Too small of a seam allowance and you'll end up with holes. Too large and you'll end up with puckers, so take your time and really try to keep exactly at 3/8 of an inch. Go ahead and sew from one end of the collar to the other. That's the trickiest part done. If you have a little pucker, try pressing or steaming it out, and you could even top stitch around the collar if you want to. Now we'll add the sleeves. Lay the bodice out with the right side up and place the sleeves with the right side down. Match up the center sleeve notch to the shoulder seam. Then you can clip the sleeves at the ends and add clips in between if needed. Do the same thing for the other sleeve. Now sew around the sleeve. Keep your bodice inside out and match up the sleeves, the armpits, and the bottoms. I like to nest my seams when I can by pushing one forward and one backward. Clip that all in place on both sides. Sew from the sleeve to the bottom on both sides. Let's make the cuffs. You're just going to fold them in half with the right sides together and parallel to the grain. Then sew up the edge on each of them. We'll fold the cuffs in half, and then we'll attach them to the sleeves. So with the bodice inside out, you'll slip the cuff inside and line up the raw edges and the seam. Again, I like to nest my seams by pushing them in opposite directions. Clip them in place. You can add as many clips as you like. I find that just having one or two holds things in place and works well for me. Sew around the cuffs. We'll create the waistband the same way we did the cuffs, so just fold your waistband in half parallel to the grain and sew up the short side. Now let's attach the waistband. Fold the waistband in half. With the bodice inside out, we'll slip the waistband into the bodice. Now we'll match up the waistband seam to the side seam. Again, I like to nest the seams. Then we'll stretch it evenly across to the opposite side and clip that in place. You can put in a few more clips to make sure it's nicely stretched, and then you'll sew around the waistband. Let's tuck in any loose serger tails and then we'll add the button. There is a target for the button on the outer collar pattern piece, but I find it easier and more accurate to just figure out where it should be once it's all put together. This button doesn't need any interfacing or reinforcement since it's really just decorative. And now you're done with your cozy shawl collar sweater.